Secretary of State John Kerry is leading the nuclear negotiations, and for the first time on camera, he's responded to those 47 Republican senators who wrote that letter to the Islamic Republic. Secretary Kerry called the letter irresponsible, and he explained why this deal with Iran would not need input from members of Congress.
This letter ignores more than 2 centuries of precedent in the conduct of American foreign policy. Formal treaties obviously require the advice and consent of the United States Senate. That's in the Constitution. But the vast majority of international arrangements and agreements do not.
And this is one of those. We don't know the details of the deal, neither does anyone else, including the 47 people who are complaining about it. Retired Colonel Cedric Leighton is a former deputy director with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He also spent 26 years as an intelligence officer for the United States Air Force. Sir, as always, thank you.
You bet, Shep.
Is this letter helpful in any way?
I don't think so. And, you know, I understand, Shep, Congress's frustration with the process and their deep concern about the arrangements with Iran or the purported arrangements with Iran. But as you correctly pointed out, we don't know the contents of any agreement. We don't know the nature of any agreement. And at this point, I would judge that kind of a letter to be premature.
It's as if they said to a foreign nation, an adversary, don't listen to our president.
Yes, and that is where I have a significant issue with it, because partisanship ideally is supposed to stop at the water's edge. And what that really means in practice is that you don't give rivals of the United States or adversaries of the United States any ammunition whatsoever when it comes to foreign relations. We may not like the agreement, we may not even think it's worth any paper that it's written on, but what we have to do is we have to be very clear that we are united when it comes to U.S. foreign policy.
Well, that's certainly not the message here, but so many analysts have suggested, and insiders will tell you, this really wasn't about Iran in the first place. The hardliners in Iran have not even responded to this letter. The leaders in Iran have responded saying, yeah, we get it. But that seems to so many analysts and observers that this was more for domestic consumption, for a base that's ravenous for material of this kind. But was it appropriate for those senators?
You know, I think not, because this is one of those situations where when you're in a negotiation with a foreign country, whether it's a country that's friendly to you or a country that is not friendly, you have to let the executive branch do its job. And then at a certain point, you know, in the case of a treaty, it's supposed to be submitted to Congress under the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, that specifically says these are the kinds of things that, that are in fact approved by the Senate. But in a situation like this, you have to have a final agreement before you actually do something of this type. It's very important to voice concerns and make sure that the administration is really keeping U.S. interests at heart and front and center. But in this particular situation, I think this letter, this vehicle didn't really work.
Retired Colonel Cedric Leighton, it's always nice to hear from you. Thanks again.
You bet, Shep.